I challenge you to ask him to host one of these. Beshear's not going to do it. He's not going to do it. He's not going to host a family-friendly drag show as a part of his campaign. You know why? Because he knows that the majority of people disagree with you too. And he's not going to tank his campaign for you. But please, keep asking him to do it. Because you know what? On the off chance that your pressure puts him in such a hard place that he decides to do it, it'll cause him to lose the campaign. That much I can promise you. Welcome, everybody, to another amazing episode of the Andrew Cooperrider Show. Of course, I'm your host, Andrew Cooperrider. Thank you all for joining me so much. We got some amazing topics to cover today. First, we're going to talk about the Cameron Beshear showdown, of course, that's looming. Everybody's talking about it. We're going to talk about, can Cameron win? What's he need to message on? What's Beshear going to message on? And what we see there moving forward. Additionally, as well, we're going to talk a little bit about the Ford battery plant again through my travels around the state. Talk to some local people, local elected officials in those areas, in the areas affected by the plant. Got some feedback from them. And then as well, a few months ago, a interesting article talking about something that I had expressed concern about a little while ago, losing jobs from the Louisville plant. And then finally, we're going to cover a new segment. I think it's probably going to turn into a weekly segment called What Did I Do to Upset the Left This Week? Of course, they got their feelings hurt again by something that I did, and we're going to go over that. But first, before we dig into it, y'all please like, comment, share, subscribe, put that out there. Spread it around. Subscribe if you're on YouTube. Of course, you can always catch this in the audio only forms on all major podcasting platforms, Spotify, Google Podcasts, Apple Podcasts, all those places as well. And thank you all so much for sharing, for subscribing. If you haven't done it yet, once again, please do it. And let's dig into it. So can Cameron beat Beshear? Well, Cameron puts out a poll here just a few days ago. And basically, it does paint a picture that certainly Cameron can beat Beshear. So let's see what we got going on here. So on this poll, if the general election for governor of Kentucky were held today, who would you vote for? 45% of the people said they'd vote for Beshear. 43% of the people said Cameron. 12% are undecided. This is a big issue, I think, for Andy Beshear. Simply put, everybody knows Beshear very well. They know what he did. Most voters will know who he is, where he stands for on things. Some people who, frankly, have buried their heads in the sand and are unable to see the truth support him greatly. And a lot of people obviously recognize him for the horrible person he is. And for those of you who want to defend and say he's an amazing person, we have seen a governor that violates the law. We've seen a governor that put small mom and pop businesses out of business, arrested people for going, attempted to put people in jail for going to church. That was stopped by a court case. These incredible mandates he put in place that, oh, by the way, lacked any kind of scientific belief or meaning that has since have been proven to be untrue. Frankly, somebody who would put forward those kinds of unspeakable things that our government should never do to an individual and then do so and then not even apologize for it when the science has come out and proven what we all know to be true all along, that it didn't work, frankly, out of control. And the fact that people still support that is crazy to me. The fact that people support somebody who would force individuals to take a medical treatment that was built upon falsified ideas, such as all the issues that we're seeing now with that it really doesn't affect others, whether or not you take the treatment. But that's what he was pushing on, and would stand up there for months on end every day on TV and tell us that we were literally killing each other because of silly things and pushing things like the masks as well. And as we know from recent data, those original kind of masks, they're pushing the disposable medical masks, certainly have shown to have not a whole lot of effect in the studies. Maybe the other masks do, but certainly those that he was pushing do not. So anyways, the point is that it's a big problem for Beshear. People know who he is. Cameron is just now coming out. They've been kind of seeing his message on TV that's been aimed at the Republicans, but now he's going to be putting forward a message into the general. And what should Cameron be messaging on? Well, I'm going to tell you. According to his poll here, he put out there and said, what do Kentuckians care about the most? Inflation, the highest at 32%, public schools, 16%, jobs, economy, 13%. I don't quite know how you ask about inflation and jobs and economy. I don't know how those mesh together. I'd love to see what those questions are, to see how they separated that out. Crime and safety, 10%, abortion rights, 8%, gun rights, 6%. So immigration, 5%, taxes, spending 4%, opioids, drugs, 3%, pro-life 2%. First off, I don't exactly know how accurate it is. I think the drug issue concerns a lot of people, but they're talking about inflation. And obviously there's small things that you can do to affect inflation. But one of the things, and this goes into a part of the problem we're seeing in our politics. And one of the things I think Cameron going up against Beshear is going to have troubles with, because frankly, Beshear is going to message heavy on the jobs. In fact, let's take a look at what Beshear's first campaign video, he just put it out, it's a minute long. Let's take a look at it and see what it says.
Kentucky is a special place. I see it everywhere I go. People putting aside their differences and looking out for each other. We've been through a lot these past 4 years, and some days have been tougher than others. But I will always show up to help the people of Kentucky, working to make sure our kids and grandkids have a bright future here, bringing thousands of good-paying jobs to the Commonwealth, 46,000 more jobs than before the pandemic, clean drinking water to folks who've been overlooked and underserved, and making sure communities across Kentucky have what they need to recover from natural disasters. My granddad and great-granddad were preachers in this church. It was flattened by the tornadoes. But when Kentuckians get knocked down, we get right back up again, and we rebuild stronger and better than before. I will never stop showing up and working for the people of Kentucky.
So as you can tell with that campaign ad, he's going to push heavy on these jobs he's created. And understand, these jobs he's created, he didn't create these jobs. He confiscated hundreds of millions of dollars of wealth, essentially from our citizens, or at least the government has confiscated wealth from citizens in the form of taxation, and has decided to hand that out to whatever private companies Beshear sees fit. And so really, he's going to stand up there and talk about how great he is at redistributing our wealth, taking it from us and then giving it to, of course, some of the biggest, most successful companies amongst us, to the tunes of over $500 million since he's been in office. And so what's crazy to me, and it's always so crazy to me to hear the left, who supposedly cares all about the little guy and really hates to see all this horrible things going on. I mean, we hear Bernie Sanders talking about, oh, the poor little guy, then sit around and advocate and campaign on the fact that they redistribute our wealth, giving it to the richest amongst us. But putting that to the side, he's going to hit upon the jobs. He's going to hit upon the money that he's handed out. Keep in mind, once again, our money, our taxes, he's just handing it out, claiming it's a great success story for him, something that you find kind of gross, shows how they think about government when they talk that way. That's what he's going to message on. So what does Cameron need to do to hit him back? Well, Beshear's going to attempt to come across as this super moderate, normal guy. He is not super moderate. He is very far left. Understand, he is very far left. He vetoed every single abortion bill that came across. He vetoed the bill to stop gender transitioning surgeries on minors. He expressed support for having minors at drag shows, which of course, those are sexualized performances. And he's continued to promulgate education policy that locks parents out of the classroom and pushes those ideas forward. He is very far left. So how is Cameron going to do it? Well, first, you're going to see Cameron trying to attach him to Biden. According to Cameron's poll here, Biden has a very unfavorable view with Kentucky. Not a great shocker. Trump ran away with this state in 2020. So it's not a big surprise that Biden has such an unfavorable view with Kentuckians. So they're going to attach Beshear and Biden together. That's going to be one way they're going to really go at it. And then the other way they're going to try to message on is they're going to talk about some of the downfalls. You'll probably see Beshear trying to take account for some of these other things like the handing out of money for sewer projects and saying, look, Beshear didn't do that. The Republican legislature did, yada, yada, yada. And then you're going to see him hit him on the mandate stuff. You're going to see him hit him on churches. You're going to see him hit him on shutting down small mom and pop businesses. You're going to see him hit him on the mask mandates. You're going to see him be hit for that, certainly as well, coming out of the Cameron campaign. Those things are just not very popular items here in Kentucky. And he's going to remind the citizens about how crazy Beshear got and how power hungry he was and how much he didn't listen to people. But there is something that I don't know if they're going to message on, but they should. Something that I know they should message on, which is, of course, going back to these social issues, such as the as I brought up earlier, the kids at drag shows, but also too as well hitting on these out of control, crazy ideas that we're seeing promulgated forward. That is the number one reason why rural Kentuckians are running away from the Democrat Party. Those rural Kentuckians that Beshear's going to have to grab. In fact, that's a big, giant problem Beshear's going to have. He's got a rural group of people who may vote Democrat, but have been scared away from it because of how crazy far to the left they are. And then you've got a group of people who are very, very, very far left in the cities that will demand that Beshear message on these things, or they might be able to get their act together and get people to not attack them on that. But we're going to talk about that here in a second. So it's certainly going to be interesting to see how this plays out. But another factor is going to be, how does this Louisville plant play out over the course of this campaign over the next 6 months? The Ford battery plant. And you may be asking, what do I mean by that? Well, in my travels around the state, I've talked to a lot of the local mayors and judge executives in those counties dealing with this Ford giant battery plant that the Kentucky taxpayer gave over $500 million to Ford to build. $410 million to Ford to build. And things are not all peachy. First off, there was no money in the appropriation to help these local counties and city governments improve their infrastructure to handle the influx of people and business they're going to be seeing as well. And then the other problem is there's no housing. There's nothing. They are throwing this up with no housing, nothing there in place. I know I was staying at a small motel in the middle of nowhere, completely booked up, had one room left, and I was able to get that room. And I asked them why they were so booked up. And they said, well, it's from the battery plant being built there in Hardin County. And I said, wow, we were at that time 45 minutes away from that battery plant, and their hotels are full up. I've been told that the construction crews are pretty upset with the unavailability of housing that they're having, those issues going on. And then on top of that, now we have this article coming out of Ford Authority. Titled Ford Louisville Assembly Plant Workers Worried About Future. Now, what's this all about is that as Ford, and this is something I predicted when the plan was first suggested, and that's why I said we weren't creating jobs, we were trading jobs, is that the Ford plant in Louisville makes some of the larger vehicles, and they're seeing talks of Ford starting to phase those out. And certainly too, as well as they become electric vehicles too. In this article, it talks about the Escape and the possibility of Ford ending that, affecting jobs there in that Louisville plant. And that issue will continue to loom. That what do they do as they're attempting to go more electric? But then another issue may be a giant pushback that happens when things stop going electric. And what I mean by that is we're already seeing warnings of rolling blackouts as they're pushing more electric vehicles down people's throats. And then additionally as well, we're also seeing Ford losing $3 billion every year on their electric vehicle pushes. The only reason they can afford to do it is because the governments, whether it's the state governments like ours, giving them hundreds of millions of dollars, the federal government's giving them hundreds of millions of dollars in order to continue pushing forward these green technologies. That's the only way they're staying in the black on these projects. And frankly, especially if we see Joe Biden lose in 2024, those subsidies, those spending ideas from the federal government, we may be seeing cut as a push forward, more saying, hey, look, we don't have, and correctly so, we don't have the infrastructure for this. We don't have the power infrastructure in place. The grid can't handle this kind of usage. And so correctly so, they're going to say, look, we're going to hold back on some of these subsidies, pushing this forward until we can at least start to see whether or not we have the raw materials for this. And if this is the right path forward, they do that. Ford may have a lot of issues in their electric vehicle march that they're making, and that could greatly affect Kentucky, especially if they've already cut some jobs there at the Ford Louisville assembly plant as well. And then finally, what did I do to upset the left this week? Well, let me tell you, they're real upset at me, real upset at me. Let me show you here what I tweeted out that got them just in a little bit of a tiffy. So I tweeted out this wonderful little post. So Beshear had unveiled his official portrait, which is kind of odd to do. Normally you do that not at this point if you're expecting especially to win a second race. But anyways, he unveils this official portrait, and we did a less than stellar, of course, is quick on the go. It wasn't supposed to look great. A Photoshop of taking that portrait, taking out the background and putting them in with a group of drag queens. And what's funny is this picture, apparently there's some drag queens in Kentucky in this picture. I literally just searched drag queens and grabbed a photo. And so I threw him in there. It says Beshear unveils his official portrait. At the top, it says, I mean, they are his #1 fans. Well, you would think that I just stepped on all these people's kittens. They may be looking at that, wondering, why are they so upset about this? Well, remember what I said earlier on. I had stated that this is an issue for Beshear. In fact, let's take drag shows in particular. Now, the majority of Americans don't think drag shows shouldn't exist. I personally don't care what you do, as long as you're not affecting minors, of course. And this becomes an issue because they have a real hard time of parsing this out. Just because I don't think that transgender people are necessarily mentally very healthy in believing they're a different gender than what they were born as, just because I don't personally think drag shows are a fantastic idea and don't attend them, doesn't mean I think you should be thrown in jail for partaking that. This is something the left has a hard time with, because they'll always attack you if you express a viewpoint such as, I disagree with this. They will say, oh, well, I thought you were for small government liberties and freedoms. I am. I can just personally disagree with you, but the difference is I don't want my government to do anything about it. I don't want them to throw you in jail over it, unless, of course, you're harming minors, unless, of course, you are causing irreparable damage to people under the age of 18 that are not adults, that don't have the ability to make decisions on their own. And what I mean by that is like dragging kids to a drag show that is a sexual performance. You can try to spin it however you want, but it's true. And you know what? The majority of people agree with me to a large degree. In fact, even amongst registered Democrats, according to polling, only 25% think kids should be allowed to go to drag shows. Only 25%. Now, vast majority in both parties think that drag shows shouldn't be allowed at all. Even in the Republican Party, not very many hold that view, but the vast majority of both parties, Republicans even more so, of course, than Democrats, but Democrats to the tune of around 75%, don't think that minors should be at drag shows. And so this kind of messaging, Beshear messaging on these issues, is what's going to sink him. That's why they're so upset about it. There was nothing actually to be upset about what I posted. Beshear does like drag queens. So what's the problem there? But yet they freaked out. Let me show you some of these comments here. I just picked up a few that I thought was pretty funny. One of which was this individual here named Snow Cone. Says, what a pathetic loser you are, talking about me. Andy is practicing Jesus's teachings, not the perverted, convoluted abomination you and your cult think is Christianity. Do better. Jesus is ashamed of you. This is a common attack we see the left doing, acting like because you're saying that, hey, that's wrong, that is going against conservative values, or even saying, I disagree with that, or saying children shouldn't be allowed at drag shows, is somehow you're not showing Jesus's love. If you don't accept transgender people for who they are, you're not showing Jesus's love. That is the stupidest take on Christianity I've ever seen in my life. First off, if you've read the Bible, which apparently Snow Cone never has, you would see that when Jesus talked to the thieves or the criminals or the prostitutes, people who were acting out sexual immoralities, he didn't tell them what you're doing is okay. I love you regardless. He said, I love you, but what you're doing is wrong and it's leading to a bad life for you. And you need to change your ways. You need to repent from your sin, accept me as your savior. He didn't say, continue being a prostitute. Did you read the same Bible I did? I do not understand what these people's takes are. But of course, where this is coming from is they want to shape Christianity to fit whatever view works for them. They can't handle an idea that they're just wrong and that their faith that they profess to believe in disagrees with what they think. But of course, that's the problem. They think it is somehow in Jesus's teachings to sit there and tell a bunch of people who are acting out sexual immoralities that that's okay. You do that and you keep doing that. Jesus loves you. And if I don't love you for that too, I'm not acting out Jesus's teachings. That's not what Jesus said. Jesus said, repent, come to me to be absolved of your sin, but please stop sinning. Okay. And to sit there and say you're good to do no matter what, you're not telling them stop sinning. Now, what's funny too, as well, is as people kind of freaked out about this, the other thing, let me show you this here. And somebody had tweeted this to mention that this is not too far from the truth. Here we have a bunch of individuals that were up at the Capitol, obviously protesting for the right for young boys and girls to chop off their genitalia, which is what they were protesting for, because the bill being passed would have stopped children from changing genders. They're up there protesting it. They grab a picture of Andy Beshear. So obviously, me putting them in that photo, not that far off from the truth. That's what we see going on. Andy Beshear loves that stuff. That's who he is. But and very upset about it though. And then we have this piece from Aquarius Revival, says, okay, at Andy Beshear KY, Huntress Thompson wanted to mention this is a great idea. And I'm going to assume from context clues that Huntress Thompson either is one of the drag performers in the photo or is a drag performer, and says, this is a great idea. Have a rally and keep on showing y'all means all. Please, 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 Andy Beshear, please host a drag show and call it family friendly. And please do that. It'll guarantee you lose in November. And they know that. That's why they're so upset. And if you don't think it's true, and if you crazy far left people who think that in your bubble, ignoring the data, ignoring the fact that the majority, vast majority of people don't think children should be at drag shows, if you want to see Andy Beshear follow through on his beliefs, please, I challenge you to ask him to host one of these. Beshear's not going to do it. He's not going to do it. He's not going to host a family-friendly drag show as a part of his campaign. You know why? Because he knows that the majority of people disagree with you too. And he's not going to tank his campaign for you. But please keep asking him to do it. Because you know what? On the off chance that your pressure puts him in such a hard place that he decides to do it, it'll cause him to lose the campaign. That much I can promise you. That much I can promise you. So once again, to Aquarius Revival and Huntress Thompson, I need you to call Beshear up every single day and demand that if he really supports you all and if he really wants your votes, he will host this drag family friendly, which is, there's no such thing as a family friendly drag show. Once again, should be illegal. The fact that it isn't is a travesty. But anyways, keep burning him up to host one of these. In fact, tell all your other LGBTQ people that love this kind of stuff, this kind of perverted garbage, please tell them that if Beshear doesn't host one of these, none of y'all should show up to the polls. and keep letting Beshear know that he needs a host winner. You guys aren't showing up, because you know what? I think you're going to find out the truth. Something you know deep down, that you're wrong. You're in the wrong on this issue. You know you are. You can't explain why you want kids out there other than sick perversion. And frankly, I think you know that society's not with you on this. No matter how much you want to scream and yell and call me or others a bigot for calling you out on this, you know that we're right. But please, prove us wrong. I ask you, bother Beshear up. See if you can't get his campaign to host a nice public event for y'all. I think it'd be a wonderful move for you all to do that. It'd certainly help out the Republican candidate Daniel Cameron win in November, because you'll be showing just how far left Beshear truly is. Well, thank you all so much for joining us today. Once again, please like, comment, share, subscribe, push this out there. I really appreciate your time. Appreciate you listening. Have yourself a wonderful, wonderful day.